3 in the morning looks different when you can't sleep. When you can't walk. The sound of wheels scraping against hardwood echoed through the massive penthouse as Cha Duwu pushed himself toward the bathroom. Sweat beaded on his forehead, pain shooting through his useless legs. Not that he could feel them, not anymore. But the phantom pain? That was there. Always there. His hand trembled as he reached for the orange pill bottle on the marble counter. Too high. Who had put it there? Right. No one. There was no one left. His fingers stretched, muscles straining. Almost, there. The bottle tipped, tumbled, crashed to the floor. Pills scattered everywhere like tiny white stars against the dark tile. No, he growled, slamming his fist against the wheelchair's arm. No, no, and oh. The sudden shadow in the doorway made him freeze. A woman stood there, watching. The new housekeeper. Karen Sinclair. American. Dark skin glowing warm even in the cold bathroom light. Her eyes didn't hold pity. That was new. Get out. Duwu snarled, his accent thickening with rage. Instead, she stepped forward, kneeling to gather the scattered pills. Her movements were calm, unhurried. You have two choices, Mr. Cha, she said, her voice steady as a heartbeat. Accept my help or die alone. She looked up, meeting his glare. Your wife already made her choice. In the silence that followed, something shifted between them. Something neither was prepared for. Okay, I know what you're thinking right now. How did this powerful man end up here? And who is this brave woman standing up to him? Trust me, this story is going to grab your heart and not let go. If you're into stories about loyalty when the world turns its back, about finding strength in your darkest hour, you're in the perfect place. Take 2 seconds to smash that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Done? Perfect. 3 months earlier, Cha Duwu was untouchable. Mr. Cha, the contracts are ready for your signature. The nervous young executive bowed slightly, placing the leather portfolio on the gleaming desk. Duwu didn't immediately respond. The floor-to-ceiling windows of his office showcased Seoul sprawling below like a glittering carpet. His empire. Not official, of course. On paper, he was merely a successful businessman with interests in shipping, real estate, and technology. The other aspects of his organization remained carefully shadowed. Is Jinho waiting? Duwu finally asked, his voice soft yet somehow filling the room. Yes, sir. In the outer office with your wife. Duwu nodded once, a dismissal the executive quickly obeyed. At 43, Cha Duwu carried his power like a second skin. Tall for a Korean man, broad-shouldered, with eyes that could charm or terrify depending on his mood. He'd risen from nothing, the son of a fish seller who'd clawed his way to the top through brilliance, determination, and when necessary, calculated ruthlessness. He signed the contracts without reading them. His lawyers and Baek Jinho, his right-hand man for 15 years, would have vetted everything. Trust was a luxury few in his position could afford, but Jinho had earned it. The office door opened without a knock. Only one person dared. Min-young glided in, all silk and perfume, her beauty as calculated as a military strategy. 7 years his junior and his wife of 3 years, she was the perfect accessory for a man of his standing. The car is waiting, husband, she said, her red lips curving into a smile that never quite reached her eyes. You don't want to be late for dinner with the trade minister. Duwu checked his watch, a Swiss timepiece worth more than most people's yearly salary. Has security cleared the route? Of course. She approached, straightening his already perfect tie. Jinho arranged everything personally. Then let's not keep the minister waiting. The transition from office to armored Mercedes was seamless, security personnel clearing paths, doors opening before he reached them, the world bending to accommodate his presence. Min-young's hand rested lightly on his arm, her diamond bracelet catching the light. A perfect couple. A perfect image. You're quiet tonight, she observed as the car pulled away from the curb. Thinking about the Incheon project, he replied, watching the city lights blur past the bulletproof glass. Always working. Her smile seemed genuine this time. That's why you're the Dragon of Soul. Always watching over your territory. He didn't notice her check her phone. Didn't see the text message that simply read, "Now." The world exploded. Later, he would remember fragments. The driver shouting. Glass shattering. The car spinning. The staccato rhythm of bullets tearing through metal. A scream, Min Young's? His own? Then blinding, white-hot pain shooting through his lower back before darkness claimed him. The hospital's ceiling was the first thing he saw. White. Sterile. Foreign. Mr. Cha. A doctor's face swam into view. Can you hear me? Duwoo tried to speak, found his throat raw. Min Young, he managed. Your wife is fine. Minor cuts only. She's speaking with police. Memory flooded back. The ambush. My driver? The doctor's expression answered before words could. I'm sorry. Duwoo closed his eyes briefly. Sangmin had been with him for 12 years. Had a daughter in university. My legs, he said next, suddenly aware of a strange absence. He could see them under the blanket, but I can't feel my legs. The doctor's face shifted to practice compassion. Mr. Cha, the bullets damaged your spinal cord at the L1 vertebra. We've stabilized you, but Duwoo knew what came next. He delivered enough death sentences himself to recognize one coming. The damage is permanent. You'll never walk again. 5 words. 5 words that erased everything he was. A rustle of expensive fabric announced Min Young's arrival. Her face was a perfect mask of wifely concern, tears threatening but carefully not falling to preserve her makeup. Oh, husband, she whispered, taking his hand. Thank goodness you're alive. But something flickered in her eyes as they traveled down to his legs. Something that wasn't sorrow. Something closer to satisfaction? No. He was imagining things. The medication. The trauma. The police think it was the Taiwanese, she said, squeezing his hand. Or maybe the Jiang family retaliating for that shipping contract. Duwoo watched her face carefully. Call Jin Ho. Tell him to come immediately. Of course. I'll step outside. She pressed a kiss to his forehead, the gesture feeling performative. I'll take care of everything while you recover. As Min Young's heels clicked down the hospital corridor, she didn't notice the woman mopping the floor. Didn't see how the woman's hands stilled on the mop handle, her dark eyes watchful. Karen Sinclair had been working at the private hospital for just 2 weeks, a temporary position while she established herself in Seoul. The employment agency had placed her there until something more permanent came along. She'd learned to make herself invisible in spaces like this, where the wealthy and powerful didn't see service workers. Min Young stepped around the corner, her voice dropping to a whisper as she made a phone call. It worked, but he survived. The paralysis is permanent though. A pause. Yes. I can access everything now. Karen kept mopping, her movements slow and deliberate. Her face revealed nothing, but her mind was racing. She'd been briefed about the important patient in room 301, some kind of business tycoon. The kind of man with power, with enemies. And apparently, with a wife who had orchestrated his downfall. Min Young ended her call, turning suddenly. For a brief moment, her eyes locked with Karen's. Karen quickly looked away, focusing intently on an imaginary spot on the floor. But it was too late. She had heard everything. And worse, Min Young knew it. The mountain estate looked the same. That was the crueler part. The same immaculate gardens. The same marble steps leading to double oak doors. The same security guards who now avoided eye contact as the ramp was positioned for his wheelchair. Home. Except nothing would ever be the same again. The doctor said to keep the bandages clean, the hospital aide explained to Min Young as they approached the entrance. He'll need help with. We have staff, Min Young interrupted, her smile tight. Thank you for your assistance. Cha Duwu said nothing as they wheeled him inside. The grand foyer with its soaring ceiling and crystal chandelier now felt like a museum he was visiting rather than his castle. His eyes traced the staircase, now an impossible mountain. I've had your office moved to the first floor, Min Young said, scrolling through her phone. The west guest room has been converted to a bedroom for you. It has the necessary accommodations. Necessary accommodations. Like he was a problem to solve rather than her husband. Where are you sleeping? He asked, his voice still rough from weeks of disuse. I've kept our room upstairs. You understand. She didn't meet his eyes. The noise of the medical equipment would disturb my sleep. And you'll have help through the night. Help. The word burned like acid. Jin-ho. Has he called? Duwu asked as the driver pushed his chair toward what was now his bedroom. He's been busy handling the organization, Min Young replied. I'll let him know you're asking for him. The bedroom was spacious but felt clinical. Hospital bed. Rails. A bathroom with metal grab bars that made his stomach turn. Everything screamed invalid. I need to freshen up for the board meeting, Min Young said, already backing toward the door. The new care assistant should be here soon. I don't need. But she was already gone, heels clicking rapidly down the hallway like she couldn't escape fast enough. Left alone, Duwu stared at his reflection in the window. He barely recognized himself. Thinner. Paler. His once commanding presence diminished by the wheelchair that now defined him. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Mr. Cha? The voice was familiar. He turned to find a woman standing in the doorway. For a moment, he couldn't place her. Then recognition flickered. The hospital. The woman mopping the floor when Min Young made that call. I'm Karen Sinclair, she said, stepping inside with a professional smile. The agency assigned me to help with your home care. American. Black. Mid-30s perhaps, with close-cropped dark hair and eyes that assessed everything without judgment. She wore a simple gray uniform that did little to hide her athletic build. I don't need a babysitter, he said flatly. Good thing I'm not one, she replied without missing a beat. I'm here to assist with physical tasks, medication management, and home exercises the therapist recommended. Duwu studied her. Most people flinched under his gaze. She didn't. You were at the hospital. Something flickered across her face. Surprise? Concern? But her voice remained steady. Yes, sir. I was working there temporarily. Before he could question further, his phone buzzed. A text from Jin-ho, meeting with investors pushed to tomorrow. We'll update you after. We'll update you after. Not asking for his input. Not waiting for his approval. The shift had begun. The next 2 weeks established a pattern. Min Young was a ghost in the house, leaving before he woke, returning after he slept. When their paths crossed, her eyes slid past him like he was furniture. The few times she spoke, her voice held the careful patience one might use with a child or an elderly relative. Karen, meanwhile, was a constant presence. Professional. Efficient. Never offering sympathy or hovering, but always there when needed. She learned his preferences without asking, anticipated needs before he voiced them, and most importantly, treated him like a man rather than a patient. The financial report you asked for, she said one morning, placing the folder within easy reach. And your physical therapist called to reschedule tomorrow's session. Duwu looked up from his laptop, surprised. How did you know I was expecting this? Your calendar alert showed on your phone when I brought your medication. She shrugged. I figured it was important. He nodded, returning to his work, but found himself watching as she efficiently organized his pills for the day. There was something familiar about her movements. Like she'd done this before. You've worked with paralyzed patients previously? He asked. Karen paused. My father. Workplace accident when I was 22. Construction site collapse. Her voice remained neutral, but something in her eyes darkened. I know what it's like on both sides of the wheelchair. Before he could respond, voices from the hallway interrupted them. Min Young and Baek Jin-ho. Just have him sign here, Jin-ho was saying. It's easier if we consolidate control while he's adjusting. He'll ask questions, Min Young replied. He's in no position to make demands. The organization needs strong leadership right now. Our partners in Shanghai are already nervous. Du-woo's hands tightened on the armrests of his wheelchair. Karen, noticing the change, quietly stepped back, making herself invisible as Min Young and Jin-ho entered. Jin-ho, once his most loyal lieutenant, couldn't quite hide his discomfort. His eyes darted around the room, landing everywhere but on Du-woo's face. Hyung, Jin-ho said, using the familiar term that now sounded hollow. You look well. Do I? Du-woo's voice was cold. Strange. I don't feel well. An uncomfortable silence followed. We need your signature on these, Min Young said, placing documents before him. Just formalities to keep things running while you recover. Du-woo didn't touch the papers. Things are running without me now? Jin-ho exchanged a glance with Min Young. The organization can't appear weak, Hyung. We're protecting what you built. By cutting me out of it. By giving you time to heal, Min Young corrected, her tone sharpening. Sign the papers, Du-woo. Don't be difficult. In the corner of his eye, Du-woo noticed Karen quietly folding laundry, her back to them but her head slightly tilted. Listening. He signed. Not because he trusted them, but because he needed time. Time to understand what game they were playing. After they left, Karen approached with his tea. They're lying to you, she said simply, placing the cup by his hand. Du-woo looked up, surprised by her directness. That's a dangerous observation. Most true things are. Her eyes met his, unflinching. I overheard your wife on the phone at the hospital. The day you were brought in. His heart rate accelerated. What did she say? It worked, but he survived. The paralysis is permanent though. Yes, I can access everything now. Karen's voice was soft but clear. I'm telling you because I believe everyone deserves to know when they're being betrayed. Du-woo stared at her, mind racing through implications. The ambush. Min Young's strange behavior. Jin-ho's sudden authority. Why tell me this? He finally asked. You're putting yourself at risk. Karen's expression remained steady. My father always said character is what you do when no one's watching. But it's also what you do when someone's vulnerable. She straightened. I should finish preparing your lunch. As she walked away, Du-woo realized he was seeing her, really seeing her, for the first time. The final betrayal came 3 weeks after his return home. Du-woo had just taken his evening medication when Min Young entered his room without knocking. She wore a black evening dress, diamonds at her throat, perfumed and perfect. I need you to sign these, she said, placing more documents beside him. It's the power of attorney we discussed. We never discussed a power of attorney, Du-woo said, the word slightly slurred. The medication made his mind foggy, his reactions slow. Of course we did, husband. Her smile was patient, practiced. You agreed it would be easier with your condition. Just temporary, until you're stronger. Something in her eyes made him hesitate, but the papers swam before his vision. He needed to sleep. Tomorrow, he mumbled. It can't wait. Her voice hardened. The transfer deadlines are tonight. Transfer deadlines? But before he could question further, a pen was in his hand, her manicured finger pointing to signature lines. One after another. In the morning, she was gone. Not just from the bedroom, but from the house. Her closets emptied, jewelry safe cleared out. When he wheeled himself to his office, he found Karen standing there, face grim. Sir, she said quietly. The household staff has received termination notices. Effective immediately. What? He grabbed his phone, tried to access his bank accounts. Denied. Another account. Denied. It hit him like a physical blow. She had taken everything. The house phones began to ring, security, staff, all receiving the same message. Min Young has fired everyone, Karen confirmed, watching his face carefully. She's transferred ownership of the companies, liquidated accounts. The staff is already leaving. Duwoo sat in stunned silence as his world collapsed around him. The ringing phones eventually stopped. Footsteps echoed as staff gathered belongings and departed. Guards abandoned their posts. Within hours, the bustling estate fell silent. Completely silent. Duwoo wheeled himself through empty hallways, shock giving way to cold fury. He had built an empire from nothing, and she had stolen it with a signature. He had survived bullets only to die slowly, abandoned and helpless in a house he could barely navigate alone. The pieces aligned with terrible clarity. The ambush. The convenient timing. His loyal men turning away. It hadn't been enemies outside his organization. The betrayal had been sleeping beside him all along. Night fell. The automated lights didn't activate. The smart home system was controlled through Min Young's phone. Darkness crept through the mansion, room by room, until Duwoo sat alone in the pitch-black kitchen, staring at cabinets he couldn't reach. Hunger gnawed at him, but the refrigerator was nearly empty. The highest cabinet, he knew, held emergency supplies. Canned food. Water. Too high for him to reach from the wheelchair. He positioned himself beneath it, stretched upward, fingers scrabbling against the smooth wood. Just inches away. Useless. The sound of the service door opening froze him mid-reach. Footsteps. Quiet but purposeful. His hand moved instinctively toward the knife block, but it had been moved. Out of reach, like everything else in his life. Who's there? He called, voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. The lights flickered on. Karen stood in the doorway, plastic bags of groceries in each hand, surprise on her face at finding him in the dark. Mr. Cha, she said, as if her presence was the most natural thing in the world. The staff was dismissed, he said, confusion momentarily replacing fear. My wife fired everyone. Karen set the bags on the counter, her movements unhurried. The agency didn't notify me of any termination, she replied, beginning to unpack vegetables, rice, containers of banchan. My contract is with the household, not your wife. She looked up, meeting his gaze with quiet determination. And I don't abandon people who need me. Why are you really here? The question hung in the air between them as Karen unpacked groceries the next morning. She paused, a container of kimchi in hand. I told you. My contract is with the agency, she replied, placing the jar in the refrigerator. Duwoo's eyes narrowed. He hadn't slept, suspicion gnawing at him all night. Did my wife hire you specifically? No. The agency assigned me. And you just happened to be at the hospital when I was admitted? Just happened to overhear her call? His voice hardened. Who sent you? One of my competitors? The Zhang family? Karen stopped what she was doing and turned to face him fully. She wiped her hands on a kitchen towel, her expression calm but serious. Mr. Cha, I'm a 34-year-old woman from Atlanta, Georgia. I needed a job that paid well enough to help my mother with her medical bills and my sister with college tuition. She crossed her arms. The agency placed me at the hospital temporarily. Then they sent me here. That's it. No conspiracy, no secret agenda. Then why stay when everyone else left? When there's no guarantee you'll be paid? Karen sighed. Because I've seen this movie before. My father was a construction foreman. Scaffolding collapsed. Spinal injury. Her voice remained steady but something flickered in her eyes. Everyone walked away. Insurance company, his boss, even some friends. My mom worked double shifts to keep us afloat. She resumed unpacking groceries. So no, I'm not walking away from someone who can't even reach their own cabinets. Not how I was raised. Duwoo studied her, searching for deception. Found none. I don't need your pity. Good, she replied simply. Because I'm not offering any. The first few days established a tense rhythm. Duwoo refused help whenever possible, gritting his teeth through tasks that now took 5 times longer than before. Karen kept her distance, respecting his pride while silently noting the struggles. On the third morning, Duwoo wheeled himself into the kitchen to find something different. The cabinets had been rearranged. Plates, cups, essential foods now occupied the lower shelves. What did you do? He demanded when Karen entered. Made things accessible, she answered, starting the coffee maker. The higher cabinets store things you don't need daily. You had no right to change my house. You had no ability to use your house, she countered. Would you prefer I stand around watching you struggle 3 times a day? Duwoo opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. She was right, though he'd never admit it. Instead, he changed the subject. I need to access my computer. The one in my office. The office upstairs? He nodded stiffly. Karen considered him. We have 2 options. I can bring the computer down, or I can help you upstairs. The thought of being carried made his jaw clench. Bring it down. Later that day, he found his laptop set up in the downstairs study, along with his preferred desk chair position for easy transfer from the wheelchair. She had thought of everything, power cords arranged to avoid wheels, desk height adjusted, even his reference books within reach. He worked silently for hours, trying to trace where Minyoung had hidden his assets. Every account emptied. Every business transferred. Properties remortgaged. It was a masterclass in theft, executed with surgical precision. When Karen brought lunch, he didn't look up. Not hungry. You haven't eaten since yesterday. I said I'm not. His stomach betrayed him with an audible growl. Karen set the tray down anyway. It'll be here when you change your mind. The aroma hit him a moment later. Doenjang jjigae. Soybean paste stew. His favorite comfort food, one his mother had made when he was a child. He looked up, startled. Where did you get this? I made it. She shrugged. Watched some YouTube tutorials. Suspicious, Duwoo took a small bite. The flavor wasn't quite right, a little too much garlic, not enough anchovy. But it was close enough to transport him instantly to his childhood, before he became the dragon of soul. Before power and fear defined him. It's acceptable, he said, taking another bite. Karen's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. High praise. That night, the inevitable happened. What doctors had warned about but Duwoo had refused to acknowledge. His body betrayed him in the most humiliating way possible. He woke to wet sheets, the catheter he'd stubbornly refused having failed during his sleep. Shame burned through him like fire. He reached for his phone to call. Who? There was no one. Just Karen. His finger hovered over her name in the contacts. He couldn't. Wouldn't. But the bedroom door opened anyway. Karen appeared in sleep clothes, basketball shorts and a faded Atlanta Falcons t-shirt. I heard you moving around. Need something? Duwoo's face burned. Get out. She started to turn, then paused, noticing. Understanding crossed her face. It happens, she said matter-of-factly. It's medical, not personal. I said get out, he snarled, humiliation turning to rage. Karen didn't flinch. Mr. Cha, you have 2 options. Let me help you change, or sit in it until morning. Your choice, but only one makes medical sense. The standoff lasted 10 seconds. 20. Finally, Duwoo looked away, defeat in every line of his body. Fine. What followed should have been the ultimate degradation. Instead, Karen's clinical efficiency and complete lack of disgust or pity somehow made it bearable. She helped him transfer to the shower chair, turned on the water, and handed him soap. "Call when you're done. I'll change the sheets." When he emerged, the bed was fresh, clean clothes laid out, and most importantly, a proper catheter kit waiting. "I was a home health aide while studying," she explained. "I know how to do this properly if you'll let me show you." That night marked a turning point. Not trust, not yet. But a reluctant acknowledgement that he needed help. And that Karen Sinclair might be the only person left in the world willing to give it without using it against him. By the end of the week, Doo-woo had confirmed what he already suspected. Min-young hadn't acted alone. His entire inner circle, men he protected, enriched, trusted, had helped her dismantle his empire. Only his house remained, and only because it was difficult to liquidate quickly. His phone, once constantly buzzing with messages, now silent. Calls went unreturned. Emails unanswered. "Your 10 o'clock appointment cancelled," Karen informed him, placing his morning medication beside his tea. "Who was it?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Park Sung-min. His attorney for 12 years. Another rat deserting the sinking ship." "Very well." Karen hesitated, then said, "There was a call earlier. From someone named Mr. Lee. Said he was your accountant." Doo-woo's head snapped up. "Lee Min-ho called here?" "When?" "Around 7. Said he needed to speak with you urgently about offshore matters." A flicker of hope ignited in Doo-woo's chest. Min-ho was his most secretive accountant, handling accounts even Min-young didn't know about. If he was calling. The house phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. Karen answered, her expression darkening as she listened. "It's for you," she said, handing him the receiver. "A lawyer." The man on the other end didn't bother with pleasantries. "Mr. Cha, this is Young Hee-jun, representing Mrs. Cha. There are remaining documents requiring your signature to complete the asset transfer. I'll be arriving at 2 p.m. And if I refuse to sign?" A cold laugh. Mrs. Cha anticipated resistance. "The documents include evidence of certain business activities that would interest prosecutors. Sign, or face charges." The call ended. Doo-woo's hand tightened on the receiver until his knuckles whitened. "Blackmail?" Karen asked quietly. "Apparently." She studied his face. "Will you sign? Would you? If someone took everything you worked for, then demanded you hand over the scraps?" Karen's expression hardened. "No. I'd fight." For the first time since the shooting, Doo-woo smiled. It wasn't a warm smile, it was the dangerous grin that had once made rivals tremble. "Then we prepare for a fight." That afternoon, while Doo-woo napped, a necessity he resented but couldn't avoid, Karen took the opportunity to properly clean his office. The lawyer's visit had been tense but brief. Doo-woo had refused to sign, and the threats remained just that. For now. As she dusted his desk, her cloth caught on something underneath. A small protrusion, almost unnoticeable. Curious, she ran her fingers along the bottom edge of the massive wooden desk. A button. Karen hesitated. This wasn't her business. But if Min-young was threatening him, perhaps there was something here that could help. She pressed it. A soft click, then a whirring sound. The bookcase to her right slid sideways, revealing a hidden room. Karen stared, heart pounding. She should stop. Close it. Pretend she never found it. Instead, she stepped forward. Motion sensors detected her presence. Lights flickered on automatically, illuminating what could only be described as a war room. One wall held weapons, handguns, rifles, even what looked like a samurai sword. Another displayed surveillance monitors, currently dark. A third contained shelves of cash bundles in various currencies, gold bars, and locked metal boxes. "My God," she whispered, taking it all in. "Give me one reason," came a cold voice behind her, "why I shouldn't assume you're here to finish what my wife started." Karen turned slowly to find Du-woo in the doorway, his wheelchair blocking the only exit, his eyes harder than she'd ever seen them. Karen's heart pounded against her ribs as she faced Du-woo in the doorway. His eyes held the cold calculation of a predator. "I was cleaning," she said simply. No excuses. No elaborate story. "And the button? You just happened to find it?" "My cloth caught on it." She kept her voice steady. "I was curious." "That was stupid of me." Du-woo's hands gripped the wheels of his chair, knuckles white. "Curiosity is a luxury people in my world can't afford. It gets them killed." The threat hung in the air between them. Karen glanced at the weapons on the wall, then back to Du-woo. "If you're going to kill me for finding your secret room, do it now," she said. "Otherwise, I'd like to finish cleaning the office." Her directness seemed to catch him off guard. For several seconds, he studied her face, looking for fear, for deception, finding neither. Finally, his shoulders relaxed slightly. "You're either very brave or very foolish. I've been called both." She gestured to the room. "So, not just shipping and real estate, I'm guessing." The ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Not just those, no." Du-woo wheeled himself fully into the room, the door sliding closed behind him. The space felt smaller with both of them inside, the air heavier. "I built my first legitimate business at 25, he said, moving to the wall of monitors. "But in Korea, legitimate businesses need protection. From competitors, from officials wanting bribes, from those who would take what isn't theirs." His fingers brushed the dark screens. One thing led to another. "You're Yakuza?" Karen asked. "That's Japanese. We have our own traditions." He turned to face her. "I protected people. Provided jobs. Kept order in places the law couldn't reach." Karen processed this, her expression thoughtful rather than judgmental. "And your wife? Was she involved?" Min-young knew enough. "Not everything." His jaw tightened. "She enjoyed the benefits, the lifestyle, the respect, the power that came with my name. But she kept her hands clean." Karen took a risk, asking the question that had been burning since the hospital. "Was she involved in the attack on you?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Finally, Du-woo spoke, his voice quiet. "I believe so. But I have no proof." The timing was too perfect. She was prepared for everything, the legal documents, the bank transfers, the company restructuring. All executed within days of my injury. He wheeled to the shelf of cash, running his fingers along a stack of one. "What I don't understand is why. Money, yes, but she could have divorced me and taken half. Why the elaborate betrayal? Why try to kill me?" "Maybe it wasn't just about money," Karen suggested. "Maybe it was about power. Your organization." Du-woo considered this. "Perhaps." He looked at her directly. "Now you know who I am. What I am. Does that change your decision to stay?" Karen leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "My father's accident happened at a high-rise construction site. The company denied responsibility, claimed he'd been drinking. He wasn't." Her voice hardened. "But they had lawyers, insurance companies, money. We had nothing." "I'm sorry that happened," Du-woo said, surprisingly genuine. "My point is, I've seen what legitimate businesses do to people. At least you're honest about who you are." She met his gaze. "And you haven't answered my question from before." "Which was? Are you going to kill me for finding this room?" Du-woo actually chuckled, a sound she hadn't heard from him before. "No, Miss Sinclair. I think we're past that now." As they exited the secret room, the dynamic between them had shifted. Not quite trust, but a mutual understanding. They had both shown their cards, at least some of them. The next morning brought a change in routine. Instead of breakfast in his room, Du-woo asked to be in the kitchen. He watched as Karen prepared a simple meal of rice, soup, and banchan. My mother made soup like that, he observed. Before she got sick. Karen glanced over her shoulder. Cancer? Yes. I was 15 when she died. I'm sorry. She placed the bowl before him. Is that why you rose so fast? To provide for your family? My father and younger brother, yes. Du ate a spoonful of soup. My father died 3 years later. Heart attack. My brother, we don't speak anymore. Why not? A shadow crossed his face. He disapproved of my methods. Said I dishonored our parents' memory. Karen sat across from him with her own bowl. But you protected him? Always. Paid for his education. His house. His children's futures. Du-woo's voice turned bitter. He takes my money but won't take my calls. Families are complicated, Karen said. My ex-fiancé was the same way. Du-woo looked up, surprised by the personal revelation. He was there when my dad's accident happened, she continued. Supportive at first. But once it became clear Dad wasn't getting better, that our lives would revolve around his care, he started pulling away. He left? Karen nodded. Said he didn't sign up for this. That he wanted a wife, not a caretaker. Her laugh held no humor. As if I had signed up for it. As if my father had chosen to have his spine crushed. Du-woo was quiet for a moment. You stayed with your father. Until he died, yes. 3 years after the accident. She rose to clear the dishes. So when people show who they are in a crisis, I pay attention. And what have you seen in me? Du-woo asked. Karen paused, considering. Someone who's angry. Hurt. Dangerous, yes. But also, resilient. Before he could respond, the doorbell rang. They both froze. No one had visited since Min-young left. Karen moved to the security panel on the wall, bringing up the front gate camera. A delivery man stood waiting, a large box in his arms. Were you expecting something? She asked. Du-woo shook his head. No one knows I'm still here. Karen's eyes narrowed. Wait here. She moved through the house to the front door, something prickling at the back of her neck. Instinct, maybe. Or just caution learned from her father's experience. The delivery man smiled blandly when she opened the door. Package for Mr. Cha. Who's it from? Karen asked, not reaching for it. Doesn't say. Need signature. Karen studied the box. Plain. No company logo. No return address. The delivery man shifted his weight, impatience flashing across his face. I'll need to check with Mr. Cha first, she said, starting to close the door. The man's foot suddenly wedged in the doorway. It's just a package, lady. His insistence sent alarm bells ringing. Karen's eyes dropped to his hands, knuckles white around the box, a slight tremor. Leave it on the step, she said firmly. I'll bring it in. Need a signature, he repeated, pushing against the door. Karen made a split-second decision. She shoved the door hard against his foot, causing him to stumble back in pain and surprise. The package fell, hitting the stone step with a distinctly metallic clank. The delivery man's face transformed, fury replacing blandness. He reached into his jacket, but Karen was already slamming and locking the door. Through the security panel, she watched him flee, limping slightly, no attempt to retrieve the fallen package. Du-woo had wheeled himself to the hallway, alarm on his face. What happened? Fake delivery, Karen said, heart pounding. I think it might be a bomb. 20 minutes later, after carefully moving the package to the garden using a shovel, they confirmed her suspicion. The box contained an improvised explosive device, crudely made but effective enough to kill anyone in close proximity when opened. How did you know? Du-woo asked as they sat in his office, the security feeds showing police bomb disposal technicians in the garden. She had called them anonymously, not wanting to involve Du-woo directly. He was too insistent. Wouldn't leave it. And when it fell, she shrugged. I've watched too many crime shows, I guess. Daewoo wasn't smiling. You saved my life. Again. It's becoming a habit, she said, attempting humor. They'll try again, he said seriously. Whoever sent that, Min Young, Jin Ho, one of my rivals, they won't stop. Karen watched the technicians carefully removing the device. Then we need to be ready. We? Daewoo raised an eyebrow. This isn't your fight, Ms. Sinclair. Karen, she corrected. And I think it became my fight when someone tried to blow up my workplace. Daewoo studied her, something new in his expression. Respect, perhaps. Or concern. You could leave, he said quietly. Go back to America. To safety. Is that what you want? He didn't answer immediately. It would be simpler. Simpler isn't always better. Karen crossed her arms. Besides, who would make your soup? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Who indeed? The moment was interrupted by Karen's phone ringing. She checked the caller ID, Mom. I should take this, she said, stepping toward the door. Of course. Hey, Mom, Karen answered, moving into the hallway. Everything okay? Her mother's voice was tense, worried. Karen, honey, there was a woman here asking questions about you. Said she was from the Korean embassy. Karen's blood ran cold. What? When? Yesterday. She knew where you worked, knew about your father, had pictures of our house. I have a bad feeling, baby. Karen turned slowly, meeting Daewoo's eyes through the doorway. The color drained from her face. Min Young found my family, she whispered. Tell me your mother's address, Daewoo demanded the moment Karen lowered her phone. His voice had changed, sharper, more commanding. The voice of the man he used to be. Karen hesitated, the fear for her family battling with caution about sharing personal information. Karen. Daewoo's eyes locked with hers. I can help, but I need the address. She gave it to him. What choice did she have? Daewoo immediately wheeled himself to the secret room, Karen following close behind. Inside, he moved to a secure phone she hadn't noticed before. This line can't be traced, he explained, dialing rapidly. Min Young doesn't know about it. Karen watched in stunned silence as Daewoo spoke to someone named Jackson in fluent English, giving precise instructions about her family's protection. The conversation was brief but detailed, security protocols, surveillance, extraction plans if necessary. 2 men will be at your mother's house within the hour, he said after hanging up. They'll remain unseen unless needed. Your sister at college will have security too. How? Karen struggled to process what she'd just witnessed. How do you still have people working for you? I thought everyone left. Not everyone. His mouth tightened. I built my organization for 20 years. Some loyalty can't be bought or stolen. And these men, they'll protect my family? You're sure? With their lives. Daewoo's certainty was absolute. Jackson owes me. I got his daughter out of North Korea 3 years ago. Karen sank into a chair, the adrenaline crash hitting her hard. Why would Min Young target my family? I'm just the help. You're the only person who stayed with me, Daewoo said quietly. The only witness to what she's done. And now. He gestured to the room around them. You know too much. The reality of her situation crashed over Karen like ice water. She'd crossed a line without realizing it, from caregiver to accomplice, from bystander to participant. So what now? She asked. She sends bombs, threatens my family, we just wait for the next attack. Daewoo studied her, his expression unreadable. That depends on you. On me? You have a choice, Karen. You can leave. I'll ensure your family's protection regardless. Or. He paused. Or we fight back. How exactly does a man in a wheelchair fight back against people who want him dead? The words came out harsher than she intended. Instead of anger, Duwu smiled, a dangerous, predatory smile that reminded her who he really was. The same way I built an empire. With intelligence, resources, and people who are underestimated. He wheeled closer. Minyoung thinks she's won. That I'm broken. Helpless. Aren't you? My legs don't work. My mind does. He tapped his temple. And I still have assets she doesn't know about. Accounts she couldn't access. People loyal to me, not her. Karen stood, pacing the small room. So you're proposing, what? That we team up? Take her down? I'm proposing a pact, Duwu said. Mutual protection. I shield your family. You help me rebuild. Together, we make Minyoung regret her betrayal. Karen stopped pacing, facing him directly. If I do this, help you, I need to know everything. No more secrets. And no illegal activities. Some secrets protect you, Duwu countered. And legality is complicated in my world. Not for me. Karen's voice hardened. I won't help you hurt people. I won't be part of that. For a long moment, Duwu said nothing, the silent battle of wills filling the space between them. Finally, he nodded. I accept your terms. For now. He extended his hand. Partners? Karen looked at the offered hand, strong, capable despite his condition. The hand of a man who had ordered violence, who lived outside the law. But also the hand of the man who had just protected her family without hesitation. She took it. Partners. If this story of loyalty in the face of danger speaks to you, hit subscribe right now so you never miss an update. Smash that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Now, back to our unlikely alliance. This is ridiculous, Duwu grumbled the next morning, eyeing the equipment Karen had assembled in the home gym. It's not state-of-the-art, she admitted, but it'll work. Using supplies from around the house, Karen had created a makeshift physical therapy setup. Resistance bands tied to sturdy furniture. Hand weights fashioned from water bottles filled with sand. A padded mat on the floor for core exercises. I did physical therapy with my father for 3 years, she explained. The fancy equipment is nice, but unnecessary. Duwu looked skeptical. And this will help, how? You need upper body strength. Core strength. Not just for daily activities, but for what's coming. Karen crossed her arms. Unless you plan to defeat Minyoung by running her over with your wheelchair? A reluctant smile tugged at his lips. Fair point. What followed was the first of many grueling sessions. Karen was a demanding trainer, pushing Duwu through exercises that left him sweating and cursing in Korean. She ignored his complaints, noting with satisfaction the determination that replaced his initial resistance. Again, she instructed after he completed a set of modified pull-ups using the resistance bands. This is torture, he gasped, arms trembling. This is survival, she corrected. Your enemies think you're weak. Every rep makes that assumption more dangerous for them. By the third day, their routine expanded. Mornings for physical training. Afternoons for strategic planning in the secret room. Duwu began teaching Karen about his financial systems, the legitimate ones and the gray areas. This account, he said, pointing to figures on a secure laptop, Minyoung doesn't know about it. I established it through a shell corporation in Singapore. Karen studied the numbers. That's a lot of zeros. Emergency funds. I've always been cautious. Cautious enough to hide money from your wife, but not cautious enough to prevent her betrayal, Karen observed. Duwu's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. I trusted her. A mistake I won't repeat. As the days passed, their partnership deepened. Karen absorbed everything Duwu taught her, financial systems, security protocols, even basic Korean phrases. In turn, she pushed his physical recovery further than he thought possible. Your core is getting stronger, she noted one morning, helping him complete a series of transfers from wheelchair to mat and back. Soon you'll be able to do this independently. Thanks to your torture sessions, he replied, but there was no bite to his words. During their fifth workout, something unexpected happened. Karen was demonstrating a self-defense move, how to break a chokehold, using Du-Woo as her practice dummy since he was seated. If someone grabs you from behind, she explained, positioning his arm around her neck, you tuck your chin, grab their arm, and she executed the move, breaking his hold and spinning to face him. Good, Du-Woo nodded. But if your attacker is stronger, try this. He reached out, demonstrating a different grip-breaking technique on her wrist. Use their momentum against them. Karen practiced the moves several times, surprised by his expertise. Where did you learn this? I wasn't always surrounded by bodyguards, he said. I fought my own battles first. They continued exchanging techniques, Du-Woo showing her how to strike vulnerable points, how to use leverage instead of strength. Despite his condition, his upper body was powerful, his knowledge extensive. You're a quick study, he observed as she successfully countered one of his moves. I had a good teacher, she replied, slightly breathless from exertion. Their eyes met, and something shifted in the air between them. A moment of connection that transcended their arrangement. Then Du-Woo smiled, not his dangerous smile, or his sarcastic one, but something genuine. Something warm. We might survive this yet, he said softly. That afternoon brought their first major breakthrough. While reviewing financial records, Karen noticed a discrepancy in Min-young's transfer patterns. Look at this, she said, pointing to the screen. She moved money from your main accounts, but these subsidiary companies weren't touched. Du-Woo leaned forward, studying the data. She didn't know about these. They're registered under different names. So we have access to about $12 million, he confirmed, something like hope flickering in his eyes. Not my full fortune, but enough to start rebuilding. Karen felt a surge of satisfaction. Enough to fight back. That night, they celebrated with a proper dinner. Karen prepared bulgogi using a recipe she'd found online, while Du-Woo contributed a bottle of wine from his cellar, one of the few luxuries Min-young hadn't taken. To unexpected alliances, Du-Woo toasted, raising his glass. And to justice, Karen added, clinking her glass against his. Later, as Karen prepared for bed, she caught herself smiling at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The fear was still there, the danger still real. But for the first time since discovering Min-young's betrayal, there was also hope. A path forward. She was so lost in thought that she almost missed the soft beep from the hallway. The security system. 3 rapid beeps, the silent alarm code. Karen froze, listening. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The alarm suddenly blared to life, a wailing siren that meant perimeter breach. Multiple intruders. She sprinted down the hallway to Du-Woo's room, heart hammering. He was already awake, maneuvering himself into his wheelchair. Safe room, he ordered as she entered. Now. It's upstairs, she protested. We'll never make it. The one upstairs, yes, Du-Woo said grimly. Under my bed. The black case. Karen dropped to the floor, reaching beneath the bed frame. Her fingers found a hard case, which she dragged out. Open it, Du-Woo commanded, his eyes on the security tablet beside his bed. They've cut the main power. Backup generator is keeping the alarm and some cameras online. Karen's hands trembled as she unlatched the case. Inside, nestled in foam, was a handgun. Black. Modern. Deadly. Take it, Du-Woo said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Karen hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing on her. This wasn't self-defense training or financial planning. This was a line she'd never expected to cross. Du-Woo wheeled closer, his eyes intense. You need to make a choice right now, Karen. Can you use this if you have to? Before she could answer, a crash echoed through the house. The sound of glass breaking downstairs. They were out of time. The gun felt wrong in Karen's hand. Heavy. Foreign. But the sounds of intruders downstairs left no time for moral debates. Yes, she whispered, answering Du Wu's question. If I have to. Du Wu nodded once, then pointed to the wall panel beside his closet. Press the lotus painting. Third flower from the right. Karen did as instructed. The panel slid open, revealing a small room, another hidden space in this house of secrets. Panic room, Du Wu explained as she helped maneuver his wheelchair inside. Bulletproof. Separate communication system. Enough supplies for 3 days. Good, Karen said, preparing to follow him in. We can. No. Du Wu grabbed her wrist. You can't be in here. What? Why not? Because they'll search the house. Find nothing. Then burn it down with me inside. His eyes were deadly serious. You're my only advantage. The variable they don't expect. Realization dawned on Karen's face. You want me to distract them. I want you to survive, he corrected. But yes, distraction would help. Footsteps on the stairs. Getting closer. Karen made her decision in a heartbeat. How do I seal you in? Same panel. Be careful. Their eyes held for a moment, something unspoken passing between them. I will, she promised, then closed the panel, watching it blend seamlessly into the wall. Alone now, Karen took stock of her situation. Gun in hand. Intruders approaching. Her mind raced through the layout of the second floor. The master bedroom had a balcony. The guest room connected to a back staircase for staff. The linen closet had a laundry chute. Options. She had options. Slipping off her shoes, Karen moved silently to the hallway, keeping low. 3 men were climbing the stairs, dark clothes, face masks, guns visible. Check every room, one ordered in Korean accented English. Find Cha. Jin Ho wants confirmation. Jin Ho. Du Wu's former right-hand man. The betrayal ran deep. Karen retreated to the master bedroom, the one place they'd expect to find Du Wu. She made the bed creak deliberately, loud enough to hear, then slipped into the massive walk-in closet. Footsteps rushed toward the sound. In here, a voice called. Karen pressed herself behind a rack of Minyoung's abandoned designer clothes as 2 men burst into the bedroom. While they searched the obvious hiding spots, she inched toward the back of the closet, to the small door that connected to the adjoining bathroom. Nothing, one growled. Check the bathroom. As they moved toward the bathroom door, Karen slipped through the connecting door, circling behind them. Heart pounding, she eased back into the bedroom and out to the hallway. The third man was methodically checking rooms down the corridor, back turned to her. Karen had a split second to decide. Try for the stairs or create another distraction. The gun weighed heavy in her hand. Could she actually shoot someone? Instead, she grabbed a decorative vase from a hallway table and hurled it down the opposite end of the corridor. It shattered spectacularly. There. The man turned, running toward the sound. Karen used the opportunity to slip down the back staircase, emerging in the kitchen. She needed to draw them away from Du Wu's bedroom, keep them searching, buy time. In the kitchen, she quickly turned on the gas stove without lighting it. The subtle hiss of gas would take time to notice, but would eventually force evacuation. Not enough to explode, just enough to create confusion. Voices from the dining room. Coming closer. Karen ducked behind the massive refrigerator just as 2 of the intruders entered. Nothing upstairs, one reported into a radio. No sign of him. Keep searching, came the reply. He can't move without help. Someone's hiding him. They began methodically opening cabinets, checking pantries. Karen calculated her chances of reaching the garage unseen. Slim. Then inspiration struck. The wine cellar. It had a delivery entrance for suppliers, a half door that opened to the outside. As the men moved deeper into the pantry area, Karen slipped along the perimeter of the kitchen, staying in the shadows. 3 more steps to the cellar door. A floorboard creaked beneath her foot. Hey! One of the men spun around, gun raised. Karen didn't think. She ran, yanking open the cellar door and plunging down the stairs into darkness. Bullets splintered the wood where she'd been standing seconds before. The wine cellar was pitch black, but Karen had been down here before, fetching bottles for Du-Wu. She navigated between racks by memory and touch, heading for the delivery door at the back. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness behind her. She's in here. Find her. Karen reached the small door, hands fumbling with the old-fashioned lock. It was stiff from disuse. Come on, she whispered desperately, fingers working the mechanism. Come on. The lock gave way just as flashlights illuminated her position. She shoved the door open and squeezed through the half-height opening, emerging into the side garden. Cold night air hit her face as she sprinted across the manicured lawn, heading for the tree line. Behind her, shouts and the beam of flashlights as her pursuers realized her escape route. Karen had nearly reached the trees when headlights swept the driveway. A car was approaching, more intruders. Her heart sank. She was trapped between the house and the newcomers. But instead of joining the search, the car skidded to a stop at the main entrance. An elderly Korean man emerged, followed by 4 younger men in suits. The older man barked orders, and his companions immediately drew weapons, moving with military precision toward the house. Karen watched from her hiding spot as the newcomers engaged the intruders. There was shouting, a brief exchange of gunfire, then silence. The elderly man remained by the car, scanning the grounds. Miss Sinclair, he called out in accented English. Karen Sinclair. Du-Wu sent me a distress signal. I am Park Sung-min. His friend. Karen hesitated, clutching the gun Du-Wu had given her. Du-Wu is in the panic room, the man continued. He needs your help to get out. The mechanism jams sometimes. This could be another trap. But something in the man's demeanor, the dignity, the concern, felt genuine. Decision made, Karen emerged from the shadows, gun raised. How do I know you're really his friend? The old man smiled slightly. Smart girl. Du-Wu has a scar on his right shoulder. From a knife fight when he was 22. I was there. I stitched it myself. Karen lowered the gun slightly. That wasn't something Min-young would know to tell an imposter. The men who came here, she said. They were working for Jin-ho. Park nodded grimly. Jin-ho and Min-young are partners now. In business and otherwise. The final piece clicked into place. Not just betrayal, affair, conspiracy, coup. Let's get Du-Wu, Karen said, moving toward the house. The aftermath of the attack transformed the quiet mansion into a command center. Park Sung-min's men, former military, Karen learned, secured the perimeter while Park himself examined the security system. They knew the blind spots, Park observed, reviewing footage in Du-Wu's office. Jin-ho's work. He helped install this system. Du-Wu, safely extracted from the panic room, was uncharacteristically quiet, watching the playback of Karen's evasion tactics with an unreadable expression. You created excellent distractions, he finally said. The gas stove was particularly clever. I've watched too many action movies, Karen replied, dabbing antiseptic on a cut on his forehead, an injury from a too rapid transfer into the panic room. Resourcefulness can't be taught, Park commented, studying Karen with newfound respect. You kept them searching while protecting Du-Wu's location. Not many trained operatives could have done better. Karen shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. I did what needed doing. That, Park said with a slight bow, is the highest compliment in our world. As dawn broke, the full picture emerged. Security footage showed the intruders' faces clearly. 2 were Jin-ho's personal guards. Phone records retrieved from one captured intruder revealed direct communication with Min-young before the attack. She's getting impatient, Park explained as they gathered in the kitchen. The longer you survive, the more nervous investors become. They backed her coup because they believed you were finished. And now? Duwoo asked. Now they wonder what you might be planning. Park's weathered face creased in a smile. Fear of you is deeply ingrained, my friend. Even paralyzed, you make them nervous. Karen prepared coffee, listening intently to this conversation between old comrades. Park Sung-min, she learned, had been Duwoo's mentor and accountant for 20 years. He'd been traveling in Japan when the assassination attempt occurred, returning to find the organization in chaos and Duwoo presumed dead or incapacitated. I've been gathering loyalists, Park explained. Those who remember who built the empire Minyoung now claims. Those who understand the meaning of honor. How many? Duwoo asked. Enough. Park accepted the coffee Karen offered. Your overseas interests remain intact. Minyoung focused on the Korean operations. Duwoo nodded, mind clearly racing. The Singapore accounts? Untouched. She doesn't know about them. Karen watched a transformation occur. With each piece of information, Duwoo seemed to grow more focused, more present. The business leader re-emerging from the wounded man. We need to secure those funds, Duwoo decided. Move them through the Macau channel, then into the new corporate structure we discussed yesterday. Park looked surprised. You've been busy. Duwoo glanced at Karen. We've been busy. For the first time, Karen saw genuine respect in Park's assessment of her, no longer just the caretaker, but a partner in Duwoo's resurrection. The American has proven useful, Park acknowledged. Karen, Duwoo corrected. Her name is Karen. And she saved my life multiple times while my so-called brothers were dividing my assets. The rebuke was gentle but firm. Park bowed slightly in acknowledgement. My apologies, Miss Karen. Old men are slow to recognize new alliances. The day progressed with strategy sessions, security upgrades, and careful planning. Duwoo's physical transformation was evident even to Park, who commented on his improved strength and stamina. Your training regimen has been effective, he told Karen privately as they prepared lunch. I haven't seen him this focused since before the attack. He's determined, Karen replied simply. Park studied her. And you? What drives your loyalty to a man you barely know? A man with complicated business interests. Karen considered the question seriously. At first, it was principle. I don't abandon vulnerable people. She glanced toward the office where Duwoo was reviewing documents. Now. I believe in what we're doing. Reclaiming what was stolen. Justice, Park nodded. A powerful motivator. By evening, the immediate crisis had passed. Park's men established a security perimeter around the estate, with rotating shifts and enhanced surveillance. The captured intruder was taken to a secure location that Karen chose not to ask about. As she prepared evening tea, Karen felt a strange sense of belonging. This makeshift war council, Duwoo, Park, herself, had formed a bond forged in crisis. For the first time since coming to Korea, she felt part of something meaningful. She gathered the tea tray and headed toward Duwoo's office, where he and Park were finalizing plans. Their voices drifted through the partially open door. The accounts in Singapore are still secure, Duwoo was saying. She doesn't know about them. Good, Park replied. That gives us operating capital. And the new corporate registrations are proceeding under the names we discussed. Karen was about to knock when Park's tone changed, becoming more cautious. And what about the woman? He asked quietly. Karen? Duwoo sounded surprised by the question. Park's voice lowered further. When this is over, she knows too much. What will you do with her then? Karen froze outside the door, tea tray in hand, heart suddenly pounding in her ears. The question echoed in the silence that followed. What would he do with her when this was over? The question hung in the air like a storm cloud. What would Duwoo do with Karen when this was over? She stood frozen outside the door, tea growing cold in her hands, waiting for his answer. Do with her? Du-Wu's voice was dangerously quiet. You speak as if she's a problem to be solved. She knows names, accounts, operations, Park pressed gently. In our world. She is not in our world, Du-Wu interrupted. She is under my protection. Permanently. Park sighed. Du-Wu, I understand gratitude, but this isn't about gratitude. Du-Wu's chair squeaked as he moved. Karen Sinclair stayed when everyone else left. She fought for me when my own blood betrayed me. She is not staff. Not an employee. She is. He paused, searching for the right word. Family, he finally said, his voice firm. And we protect family. That discussion is closed. Karen's heart hammered in her chest. Family. The word warmed something inside her that had been cold for a long time. Taking a deep breath, she deliberately rattled the teacups and pushed the door open. Tea, she announced, as if she'd heard nothing. But her eyes met Du-Wu's, and something passed between them, an understanding, a question, an answer. Park glanced between them, his weathered face revealing nothing. But he accepted his teacup with a slight bow that seemed deeper than before. The next morning, Karen found Du-Wu already awake in his office, reviewing security footage from the night before. We need to talk, she said without preamble. Du-Wu looked up, studying her face. You heard Park's question. It wasn't a question. Karen nodded. And my answer? I heard that too. She closed the door behind her. But I need to be clear about something. Du-Wu gestured to the chair across from him. Please. Karen sat, gathering her thoughts. I appreciate that you consider me family. But I need to know where I stand. Not just your intentions, but my position in all of this. What do you mean? I mean, I'm in the middle of what feels like a mob war. Karen leaned forward. I've helped access hidden accounts. I've seen your weapons room. I fought off intruders. That makes me. She searched for the right word. Complicit. Du-Wu's expression softened slightly. You're worried about legal exposure. I'm worried about a lot of things, she admitted. Including what happens if you win this fight with Min Young. Do I just go back to being the help? Do I leave? What's the end game here? For a long moment, Du-Wu was silent, his fingers tapping thoughtfully on his armrest. Then he wheeled around the desk until they were face to face, no barriers between them. Karen, let me be clear, he said, his voice gentle but serious. You have never been just the help to me. Not from the moment you stayed when everyone else left. He reached into his desk drawer, withdrawing a folder which he handed to her. What's this? She asked. Open it. Inside was legal paperwork, a contract naming her as Chief Operations Officer of Chashin Enterprises, with a salary that made her eyes widen. This is one of my legitimate businesses, Du-Wu explained. Import, export, real estate development, technology investments. Min Young couldn't touch it because she didn't know it existed. It's registered in the United States. Karen stared at the documents. You want me to run your company? I want you to help me build something new, he corrected. Something legitimate that can't be taken. Something that's ours. Ours, she repeated softly. If you want it, he added. It's your choice. Always your choice. Karen felt something shift between them, the power dynamic equalizing in a way she hadn't expected. And Min Young? Jin Ho? Du-Wu's expression hardened. They tried to kill me. Tried to threaten your family. That can't stand. What are you planning? Justice, he said simply. Not vengeance. We gather evidence. Financial fraud. Conspiracy to commit murder. We turn it over to the right authorities. The legal way, Karen clarified, surprise evident in her voice. The smart way, Du-Wu corrected with a slight smile. Prison will hurt them more than anything else I could do. Karen studied him, looking for deception and finding none. After a moment, she nodded slowly. Okay, she said. I'm in. Good. Duwoo extended his hand. Partners. Officially. As their hands clasped, Karen felt as if she'd crossed some invisible threshold. No longer caregiver and patient. No longer employer and employee. Something new. Something equal. The next 2 weeks passed in a flurry of activity. With Park's help, they built their case against Min Young and Jin Ho, financial records showing fraud, testimony from loyal employees, even security footage from the night of the attack. Karen absorbed everything Duwoo taught her about corporate structures, international banking, and investment strategies. Her natural intelligence, combined with Duwoo's patient instruction, accelerated her learning curve. You're a quick study, he observed one evening as they reviewed financial projections for Chashin Enterprises. I had good teachers in college, she replied, adjusting a spreadsheet formula. Just never got to use my business degree until now. Duwoo looked surprised. You have a business degree? Karen nodded, still focused on the screen. MBA from Georgia State. Graduated right before Dad's accident. Then life happened. Why didn't you mention this before? She shrugged. You never asked. And in service jobs, being overqualified just makes employers nervous. Duwoo was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry. Karen looked up. For what? For assuming. He gestured between them. For thinking I was teaching you something new, when you were already trained. You are teaching me new things, she assured him. Just not basic accounting. They shared a smile, one of many small moments of connection that had begun to fill their days. Their physical training continued as well, with Duwoo's strength improving remarkably. He could now transfer himself from wheelchair to bed without assistance, navigate the entire house independently, and had developed impressive upper body power. You'd make a good physical therapist, he told Karen after a particularly challenging session. I considered it, she admitted, helping him towel off. After Dad. But med school costs too much, and we already had debts from his care. These glimpses into her past emerged naturally now, shared without the hesitation of earlier days. In turn, Duwoo revealed more of himself, stories of his childhood in a poor fishing village, his brother's academic success, his mother's death from untreated cancer because they couldn't afford doctors. That's why I built what I did, he explained one night over dinner. To never be powerless again. And now? Karen asked gently. With your legs? Duwoo was quiet for a moment. I'm learning different kinds of power, he finally said, his eyes meeting hers. Thanks to you. The air between them changed, charged with something neither was ready to name. Before Karen could respond, her phone rang. Her mother's number. Mom, she answered, instantly alert. Everything okay? Her mother's voice was tight with worry. The doctors found something on my scan, honey. They want to do more tests. It might be nothing, but... The world seemed to tilt beneath Karen's feet. What kind of tests? When? Tomorrow. They had a cancellation. Her mother's voice wavered. I didn't want to worry you, but your sister's in finals and... I'll be there, Karen said immediately, then glanced at Duwoo, suddenly torn. I mean, I'll try to. Duwoo was already shaking his head, mouthing, go. Mom, I'll call you right back, Karen promised, ending the call. You need to be with your mother, Duwoo said before she could speak. Family comes first. But the security situation is manageable. Park's men are here. I'll be fine. Karen hesitated. The flights will be expensive on short notice. Take the company jet, Duwoo said simply. It's fueled and ready at Incheon. I'll make a call. You have a private jet? Karen blinked. Chashin Enterprises has a jet, he corrected with a small smile. And its COO needs to return home for a family emergency. 3 hours later, Karen found herself on the steps of a sleek Gulfstream, overnight bag in hand. Everything had happened so quickly: Duwoo's efficient arrangements, the car waiting to take her to the airport, security escorts. "I feel like I'm abandoning you," she admitted as Duwoo accompanied her to the car. "You're not." His hand covered hers briefly. "You'll be back." It wasn't a question, yet she heard the slight uncertainty beneath his confidence. "Yes," she said firmly. "I'll be back." The flight to Atlanta felt surreal, luxury surrounding her while anxiety churned in her stomach. Her mother's health, Duwoo's safety, the strange double life she now led. Karen arrived at Grady Memorial Hospital to find her mother already prepped for tests. Sandra Sinclair looked smaller than Karen remembered, more fragile, but her smile was the same. "You didn't have to come all this way," she scolded, though her eyes said differently. "Of course I did." Karen hugged her carefully. Family first. The next 2 days passed in a blur of doctor consultations, tests, and nerve-wracking waits for results. Karen's sister Tamika joined them, taking breaks from finals to bring coffee and updates from campus. On the second night, while their mother slept in her hospital room, Tamika cornered Karen in the cafeteria. "Okay, spill," she demanded. "What's going on with you?" Karen blinked innocently. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you show up from Korea on a private jet. You're wearing clothes I've never seen before." Tamika raised an eyebrow. "And you keep checking your phone like the president might call." "It's work," Karen said vaguely. "Things are complicated right now." "Uh-huh." Tamika leaned forward. "And does complicated have anything to do with why you mention your boss in every other sentence?" "I do not." "Duwoo would say this." "Duwoo thinks that." Tamika mimicked. "You talk about him differently than just a boss." Heat crept up Karen's neck. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" Tamika's voice softened. "Because something's changed. You look. I don't know. Alive in a way I haven't seen since before Dad got hurt." Karen stared into her coffee, suddenly unable to find words for everything that had happened. How could she explain the past weeks? The danger, the trust, the strange partnership that had formed in crisis? "He needs me," she finally said. "Not just for care. For everything. And I need," she stopped, surprised by what she'd almost admitted. "You need him too," Tamika finished gently. "It's okay to say it, you know." Karen met her sister's eyes. "It's complicated," she repeated. "The best things usually are." Tamika squeezed her hand. "Just be careful, sis. I need you too." Later that night, alone in her childhood bedroom, Karen finally called Duwoo. It was morning in Seoul. "How is your mother?" he asked immediately. "Better than we feared," Karen sighed in relief. "Not cancer. Some medication issues they're adjusting. She'll be fine." "I'm glad." His voice was warm, genuine. "And you? How are you?" "Tired." "Relieved." She hesitated. "Missing Korea." The slight pause spoke volumes. "Korea misses you too," he replied softly. "When will you return?" "Day after tomorrow, if Mom's final tests go well." "Good." The relief in his voice was palpable. "Things are quieter without you." Karen smiled into the phone. "Are you saying I'm noisy, Mr. Cha?" "I'm saying the house feels empty," he answered honestly. "I've gotten used to your presence." The admission hung between them, unexpectedly intimate. "I'll be back soon," she promised, her voice gentler than intended. After they hung up, Karen lay awake, thinking about Tamika's observation. Did she talk about Duwoo too much? Had something fundamental shifted without her noticing? For 1,000 miles away, Duwoo was asking himself similar questions. The mansion felt cavernous without Karen. Her absence was a physical thing, spaces where she should be, silences where her voice should fill. Even Park had commented on his distraction. Duwoo wheeled himself through the empty kitchen, remembering Karen making tea, laughing at his complaints about American coffee, teaching him to fold paper airplanes when boredom threatened during recovery. When had she become essential? Not just useful. Not just helpful. Essential. The realization hit him with unexpected force. This wasn't gratitude. It wasn't even friendship. It was something deeper, something he hadn't felt in. Had he ever felt it? Duwoo thought of Min Young, the cold calculation of their relationship, the business arrangement masquerading as marriage. This was different. Karen saw him, not his power, not his wealth, but him. The man beneath the title. And he saw her, her strength, her intelligence, her unwavering loyalty. For the first time since the attack, Duwoo felt truly afraid. Not of bullets or betrayal, but of the possibility that she might not return. That he might lose this connection before they'd fully explored what it could be. 3 days later, Karen's taxi approached the mansion gates. She noticed immediately that something was different. Security had tripled, men in suits at regular intervals along the perimeter wall, additional cameras visible. Has something happened? She asked the guard who checked her ID. Mr. Cha is expecting you, he replied, avoiding the question. As the taxi wound up the driveway, Karen spotted numerous black sedans parked in formation. Important visitors. Many of them. Unease prickled along her spine as she entered the house. Voices, multiple male voices, came from the living room. A meeting? Duwoo hadn't mentioned anything during their calls. Karen set down her bag, squaring her shoulders before walking toward the voices. As she entered the living room, the conversation instantly ceased. At least 15 men in expensive suits turned to stare at her. Some faces registered surprise, others suspicion, a few outright hostility. At the center of the room, Duwoo sat in his wheelchair, but it wasn't the chair she remembered. This was sleek, custom carbon fiber, more throne than medical equipment. Duwoo himself looked transformed, dressed in an impeccable suit, hair perfectly styled, posture radiating authority. For the first time, Karen glimpsed the man he must have been before the attack, the Dragon of Soul. His eyes found hers immediately, warming in a way that contrasted with his formal appearance. Karen, he said, his voice carrying easily through the silent room. Welcome home. Home. The words settled around her like a comfortable weight. Before she could respond, Duwoo addressed the assembled men. Gentlemen, this is Karen Sinclair. She felt the weight of their assessment, a black American woman in casual travel clothes, clearly not Korean, clearly not what they expected. Duwoo continued, his voice taking on an edge of steel. From now on, she speaks with my authority. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave now. The challenge hung in the air, unanswered but unmistakable. No one moved. Every eye in the room shifted back to Karen, waiting to see what she would do next. The silence following Duwoo's declaration felt electric. Karen could practically see the thoughts racing behind the men's carefully neutral expressions. Some looked shocked, others calculating, a few seemed almost amused. Park Sung-min was the first to break the silence, stepping forward with a respectful bow. Welcome back, Ms. Sinclair. Your presence has been missed. His acknowledgement set off a chain reaction. One by one, the men introduced themselves, each showing varying degrees of acceptance. Most were business associates, she learned, restaurant owners, construction executives, import-export directors. The legitimate face of Duwoo's empire. When the formalities concluded, Duwoo smoothly transitioned to business matters, including Karen in every discussion as if she'd always been part of his inner circle. Karen has uncovered a pattern in Min Young's financial transfers, he explained, gesturing for Karen to elaborate. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward and outlined their findings, keeping her voice steady despite the scrutiny. The respect in Duwoo's eyes gave her confidence. After the meeting concluded and the men filed out, Karen finally exhaled. That was unexpected, she said once they were alone. Was it too much? Duwoo asked, watching her carefully. I should have warned you. A heads up would have been nice, she admitted. I'm still in my travel clothes. You could wear pajamas and still command more respect than half those men, Daewoo replied, a hint of pride in his voice. Karen shook her head, but couldn't help smiling. What exactly did you tell them about me? The truth, he said simply. That you stayed when everyone left. That you've been instrumental in uncovering Min Young's fraud. That your business acumen is essential to our recovery. And they accepted that? A foreign woman they've never met before? Daewoo's expression turned thoughtful. These men have known me for years. They've seen me elevate people based on loyalty and competence, not background. Besides, he added with a hint of his dangerous smile, they know better than to question my judgment. Karen crossed her arms, studying him. I need to be clear about something. Of course. I meant what I said before. I won't be involved in anything illegal. Her voice was firm. If speaking with your authority means ordering hits or laundering money, I'm out. Instead of offense, Daewoo's expression showed respect. I understand. And I agree. You do? Karen couldn't hide her surprise. Min Young's betrayal has given us an opportunity, he explained, wheeling closer to her. A chance to rebuild differently. The legitimate businesses are actually more profitable long-term. Less risk, more stability. And the other parts of your organization? Are being restructured. Daewoo's tone made it clear this wasn't negotiable. Some operations will end. Others will continue under different leadership. You won't be involved with those. Karen considered this compromise. I can live with that, she finally said. As long as my hands stay clean. Your hands, Daewoo promised, will build something better than what was lost. The next week established a new normal. Karen moved from her staff quarters to a proper guest suite, a physical representation of her changed status. Daewoo formally introduced her as COO of Cha-Shin Enterprises to his legitimate business partners, backing her authority with his own considerable influence. Most adapted quickly to the new hierarchy. A few tested boundaries, addressing questions about operational decisions to Daewoo instead of Karen, only to be firmly redirected. Ms. Sinclair handles those matters, he would say, refusing to undermine her. In private, they developed a two-pronged strategy, rebuild the legitimate businesses while gathering evidence against Min Young and Jin Ho. These transfer records, Karen said one evening, pointing to her laptop screen, show a clear pattern of fraud. Min Young moved assets that weren't hers to move. The power of attorney complicates things, Daewoo reminded her. She'll claim I authorized everything. Except for these, Karen countered, highlighting several transactions. These happened before you signed anything. And look at the dates, some of these transfers were set up months before your shooting. Daewoo leaned forward, studying the screen. You're right. This was premeditated. She was planning this for at least a year, Karen concluded. The attack just accelerated her timeline. The evidence continued mounting. Financial records showed Min Young had been secretly meeting with Jin Ho for 18 months. Property transfers revealed a pattern of assets being moved to shell companies controlled by Jin Ho's relatives. Most damning were emails recovered from a backup server, discussing how the wheelchair will make everything easier. They actually put it in writing, Karen said, disgusted. They were counting on your paralysis to make the takeover smoother. Daewoo's expression remained impassive, but Karen had learned to read the subtle signs of his anger, a tightening around his eyes, a certain stillness in his posture. Their arrogance will be their downfall, he said quietly. As they built their case, Karen insisted on following proper legal channels. Everything had to be admissible in court, obtained through legitimate means. Daewoo agreed, though sometimes with visible restraint. It would be faster my way, he remarked once after a particularly frustrating dead end. But not lasting, Karen countered. We do this right, or we don't do it at all. Daewoo studied her for a moment. You're good for me, Karen Sinclair. Someone has to keep you honest, she replied with a small smile. The dynamic between them continued evolving, becoming more partnership than employee-employer. They developed inside jokes, comfortable silences, and the ability to communicate with just a look. Karen found herself thinking of Du-woo in moments when they were apart, wondering if he'd approve of a business decision, imagining his dry commentary on situations, missing his presence. It was dangerous territory, she knew. But impossible to avoid. 3 weeks after her return from Atlanta, everything changed again. Park arrived at breakfast, his normally composed face tense. Min-young is back in Korea, he announced without preamble. Du-woo set down his coffee cup. When? Yesterday. Private flight from Macau. Surveillance? In place. She went straight to the prosecutor's office. Karen and Du-woo exchanged alarmed glances. What would she want with prosecutors? Karen asked. To get ahead of us, Du-woo replied grimly. She knows we're building a case. Throughout the day, reports trickled in. Min-young meeting with government officials. Jin-ho spotted at a high-end restaurant with a known judge. Their enemies were mobilizing, calling in favors, building defenses. That evening, a delivery arrived at the mansion gates, a small package addressed to Karen personally. Security protocols meant it was thoroughly examined before reaching her. It's clean, the security chief reported, placing the box on the table. Karen opened it carefully. Inside was a single black rose and a note, housekeepers should know their place. Last warning. Du-woo, watching her face, wheeled closer. What is it? She handed him the note silently. The change in his expression was immediate and terrifying. The calm, strategic businessman vanished, replaced by something cold and dangerous. He barked orders to increase security, to track the package's origin, to review all surveillance footage. I want whoever delivered this found, he commanded, voice like ice. Now. When they were alone, Du-woo moved closer to Karen, taking her hand. This changes things, he said softly. You need protection. Constant protection. I'll be careful, she assured him. That's not enough. His grip on her hand tightened. Move your things to the room connecting to mine. The staff quarters are too isolated. Karen raised an eyebrow. That's Min-young's old room. All the more reason to replace her presence with something better. His eyes held hers. Please, Karen. I can't protect you if you're across the house. The intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. Okay, she agreed quietly. That night, after relocating to the connecting suite, Karen found herself unable to sleep. The threat felt more personal now. Not just business, but targeted specifically at her. She wandered onto the shared balcony between their rooms, breathing in the cool night air. Seoul glittered below, beautiful and indifferent to the human dramas playing out in its midst. Can't sleep? Du-woo's voice came from the shadows. He sat in his wheelchair by the railing, hair slightly tousled, wearing a simple black t-shirt instead of his usual formal attire. Too much on my mind, Karen admitted, joining him at the railing. The threat? That. Everything. She sighed. Sometimes I think about how differently my life would have gone if I hadn't taken this job. If I'd never met you. Do you regret it? He asked quietly. Karen turned to look at him, really look at him. The proud profile, the strong shoulders, the hands that could be gentle or dangerous depending on the moment. No, she said truthfully. I don't regret any of it. Something shifted in the air between them. Du-woo moved his chair closer, his hand finding hers on the railing. When I was first injured, he said softly, I thought my life was over. That nothing good could come from such loss. His fingers intertwined with hers, the touch sending warmth up her arm. I was wrong, he continued, voice low. Something good did come. You. Karen's heart hammered against her ribs as Du-woo gently tugged her hand, pulling her toward him. She found herself leaning down, their faces inches apart, his eyes asking a question his lips hadn't formed. She wanted to answer. Wanted to close the distance. The sharp ring of Du-woo's secure phone shattered the moment. He closed his eyes briefly, frustration evident, before answering. "This better be important," he said tersely. As he listened, his expression changed from annoyance to shock to determination. "Understand. Secure the documents. We'll move immediately." He hung up, looking at Karen with renewed urgency. "That was our contact at the Port Authority. Min Young has booked passage on a private cargo vessel leaving tomorrow night." "She's running?" Karen straightened, professional mode instantly re-engaged. "Taking everything she can carry." Duwoo was already heading inside. "Bank records show massive withdrawals. She's preparing to disappear permanently." Karen followed, the almost moment on the balcony reluctantly set aside. "We need to move faster with the prosecutors." "Already arranged. Our legal team is meeting us here at 8 a.m. Duwoo reached for his laptop. "We present everything tomorrow." They worked through the night, organizing evidence, preparing statements, building an airtight case. By dawn, exhaustion tugged at Karen's edges, but determination kept her focused. "We only get one shot at this," she reminded Duwoo as they reviewed the final documents. "It will be enough," he assured her. Min Young was careful, but not careful enough. At precisely 8 a.m., the legal team arrived, 3 Korean attorneys and an American consultant specializing in international financial crimes. The presentation was comprehensive, the evidence damning. With these records, the lead attorney concluded, the prosecutors can move immediately. Asset freezes, travel restrictions, possible arrests. Relief washed over Karen. After everything, the betrayal, the attacks, the threats, justice was finally within reach. "How quickly can they act?" Duwoo asked. "They're reviewing everything now," the attorney reported. "We should hear." The attorney's phone rang, interrupting him. The conversation that followed was in rapid Korean, but Karen could read the changing expressions. Something was wrong. When he hung up, the attorney's face was grave. "The prosecutors are moving forward with charges against Min Young and Baek Jin-ho for attempted murder and embezzlement." A collective sigh of relief filled the room, but the attorney raised his hand. "But there's a problem. Min Young claims she has evidence that you've been threatening her through your associate." All eyes turned to Karen. "They've issued a warrant for Ms. Sinclair's arrest as an accomplice in organized crime." The room fell silent as the words hung in the air. "An arrest warrant? For Karen?" "That's impossible," Duwoo said, his voice dangerously calm. "What evidence?" The lawyer looked uncomfortable. "Text messages, supposedly from Ms. Sinclair, threatening Min Young. And a witness claiming to have seen her at Min Young's apartment building the night before the bombing attempt." Karen's mind raced. "I've never texted her. I've never been to her apartment." "It's fabricated," Duwoo concluded. "But effective. They're trying to discredit our witness before the case even begins." Park, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "The warrant is real. My sources confirm it. Police could be here within hours." The implications crashed over Karen like ice water. Arrest. Jail. A foreign legal system. Even if she was eventually cleared, the damage would be done, to the case, to her reputation, to everything they'd worked for. "I'll turn myself in," she said suddenly. All heads turned to her in shock. "Karen," Duwoo started to protest. "It's the smart play," she interrupted. "If I go willingly, it looks like I have nothing to hide. And it keeps the focus on Min Young's crimes rather than turning this into a manhunt." "Absolutely not," Duwoo's voice cut like steel. "I won't allow it." "This isn't your decision," Karen countered, standing her ground. "I'm not letting her destroy everything we've built. If my arrest keeps the investigation moving forward against her, it's worth it." Duwoo wheeled closer, his eyes intense. "Do you understand what Korean jail would be like for you? A foreigner? Alone?" "I understand exactly what I'm offering," she said quietly. "And I'm not afraid." The room watched their standoff with bated breath. Then Duwoo did something unexpected. He smiled, that dangerous, confident smile that had once made rivals tremble. "Your sacrifice is admirable," he said, "but unnecessary." He nodded to Park, who produced a sleek tablet from his briefcase. "We anticipated Minyoung might try something like this," Duwoo explained. "So we prepared contingencies." On the screen was a complete dossier, Karen's whereabouts for every day since Minyoung's departure, surveillance footage of her daily routines, affidavits from security personnel confirming she never left the estate unaccompanied. "You had me followed?" Karen asked, surprised and a little unnerved. "Protected," Duwoo corrected. "Documented. And it's a good thing we did." The lead attorney studied the evidence, nodding slowly. "This creates reasonable doubt. Combined with phone records proving Ms. Sinclair never contacted Minyoung." "We have those too," Park confirmed. Karen looked between them, stunned. "You thought of everything." "Not everything," Duwoo admitted. "But enough. Minyoung is desperate. That makes her dangerous, but also careless." He turned to the legal team. "Proceed with the original plan. Present our evidence to the prosecutors. Emphasize the falsified allegations against Ms. Sinclair as further proof of Minyoung's attempts to obstruct justice." As the lawyers gathered their materials, Duwoo wheeled toward his office, gesturing for Karen to follow. Once alone, his composed facade cracked slightly. "You were really going to surrender yourself," he said, voice tight with emotion. "For me. For this case." "It was the logical move," she replied simply. "Logic has nothing to do with what you offered." His eyes held hers. "No one has ever been willing to sacrifice so much for me." Karen felt something shift between them, the almost moment from the balcony returning with greater intensity. "What happens now?" she asked softly. "Now," Duwoo said, determination replacing vulnerability, "we end this. Tonight." The plan came together quickly. The prosecutors agreed to meet them at the Lotus, an exclusive restaurant in Gangnam, neutral territory where Minyoung and Jinho were known to dine regularly. The authorities would be positioned discreetly throughout the venue, ready to act once final evidence was presented. "Are you sure about this?" Karen asked as they prepared to leave. "Meeting her face to face?" "It needs to be public," Duwoo explained, adjusting his tie. "With witnesses. Where she can't deny who she really is." Karen understood the strategy, but worry gnawed at her. "She's cornered. That makes her unpredictable. That's why I want you to stay here," Duwoo said firmly. "Park and his team will handle security. You've done enough." Karen crossed her arms. "Not a chance. We started this together, we finish it together." Their eyes locked in another silent battle of wills. Finally, Duwoo nodded, a reluctant smile touching his lips. "Together, then." The journey to the Lotus felt surreal. The sleek black Mercedes had been modified for Duwoo's wheelchair, the interior a blend of luxury and practicality. Outside, Seoul's neon landscape blurred past, a city that had once bowed to Duwoo's influence, then believed him broken, now about to witness his resurrection. Karen sat beside him, dressed in a simple but elegant navy dress that Park had somehow procured in exactly her size. Duwoo looked more commanding than she'd ever seen him, bespoke suit, hair perfectly styled, his entire presence radiating authority. "Nervous?" he asked, noticing her fidgeting with her bracelet. "Terrified," she admitted with a small laugh. "But ready." His hand found hers in the darkness of the car. "Whatever happens, remember this. You saved me in ways that had nothing to do with my legs." The simple truth in his words warmed her more than any elaborate declaration could have. The Lotus loomed ahead, its traditional Korean architecture illuminated against the night sky. As their car pulled up to the entrance, Karen saw Minyoung's distinctive red sports car already parked in the VIP section. "She's here," Karen noted unnecessarily. Duwoo squeezed her hand once more before letting go. "Then let's not keep her waiting. Before we conclude this story of loyalty, redemption, and unexpected love, I want to thank you for coming this far with me." Stories like this one are why I do what I do, and your support means everything. If you felt something during this journey, please smash that subscribe button right now and let me know in the comments where you're watching from and which character you connected with most. Now, let's see how our story ends. Their entrance was nothing short of theatrical. Duwoo had timed it perfectly, the main dining room at its busiest, Seoul's elite gathered for evening meals, conversations flowing with wine and business deals. Then, silence fell like a curtain. Duwoo entered first, his wheelchair no longer a symbol of weakness but a throne from which he commanded attention. Karen walked beside him, not behind, an equal partner rather than a subordinate. Park and two security men followed at a respectful distance. Across the room, Min-young sat with Jin-ho and two other associates. The shock on her face was palpable, even from a distance, first at seeing Duwoo in public, then at recognizing Karen beside him. Quite an entrance, Karen murmured. She always did appreciate theatrics, Duwoo replied as they approached the table. Min-young recovered quickly, her surprise transforming into a cold smile. She was still breathtakingly beautiful, designer dress, perfect makeup, diamonds at her throat. But to Karen's eyes, the beauty now seemed hollow, like a mannequin's. Husband, Min-young greeted, the Korean honorific dripping with mockery. How unexpected to see you out in public. And with your maid, no less. Chief Operating Officer, Duwoo corrected smoothly. Of Cha-shin Enterprises. You remember my company? The one you couldn't steal because you didn't know it existed. Jin-ho, a stocky man with an expensive watch and nervous eyes, shifted uncomfortably. This is a private dinner, Duwoo. Whatever business you have is with the prosecutors, Duwoo interrupted. Who should be arriving shortly. But I wanted to give you the courtesy of seeing me one last time before your arrest. Min-young laughed, though Karen noticed it didn't reach her eyes. Arrest? For what? Taking care of my poor, disabled husband's affairs while he was indisposed. For attempted murder, Karen stated flatly. For conspiracy. For fraud. Min-young's gaze shifted to Karen, hatred flashing behind her practiced smile. The American speaks Korean business law now? How impressive for a housekeeper. I speak the truth, Karen replied calmly. We have everything, Min-young. The financial transfers that predated Du-woo's injury. The communications between you and Jin-ho planning the takeover. The orders for the hit. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Min-young's perfect features. Then, surprisingly, she laughed again, genuine this time, and somehow more disturbing for it. You think you've won, she said, leaning forward. The triumphant return of the dragon and his foreign pet. But you've forgotten something important, husband. And what's that? Duwoo asked, his voice dangerously soft. Min-young's smile turned vicious. I know where all the bodies are buried. Literally. She glanced meaningfully around the crowded restaurant. How many people here have benefited from your business methods? How many would fall if you took me down? Duwoo didn't flinch. You misunderstand the situation, Min-young. I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to say goodbye. Confusion flashed across her face. What? The evidence has already been delivered to the prosecutors. Special divisions handling financial crimes and attempted murder. People outside our usual circles. People who can't be bought. Min-young's composure cracked slightly. You're bluffing. The accounts are already frozen, Karen added, feeling a grim satisfaction as Min-young's eyes widened. The Macau transfers, the Singapore holdings, the properties in your cousin's name. All of it. Jin-ho cursed under his breath, already reaching for his phone. One of his associates whispered urgently in his ear. You wouldn't dare, Min-young hissed, her beautiful face twisting with rage. If I go down. You go down alone, Duwoo finished for her. My legitimate businesses continue. My loyal people remain protected. You overestimated your importance, Min-young. Just as you underestimated mine. The restaurant's atmosphere had changed, other diners sensing the drama unfolding. Phones were discreetly recording, whispers spreading across tables. Min Young's mask shattered completely. You think you've won? She spat, voice rising. Look at you. A cripple in a chair. I should have made sure they killed you properly. The outburst echoed through the suddenly silent restaurant. Dozens of witnesses. Dozens of recording phones. Duwoo smiled, calm and victorious. Thank you for the confession. On cue, the restaurant doors opened. 3 plainclothes officers approached, flanked by uniformed police. Min Young Cha, Baek Jin Ho, the lead officer announced formally. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, financial fraud, and embezzlement. As the officers moved in, Min Young's eyes locked with Karen's, hatred radiating from her like heat. In a lightning-fast motion, she grabbed a steak knife from the table and lunged, not at Duwoo, but at Karen. Karen reacted instinctively, using the defensive moves Duwoo had taught her. She sidestepped, caught Min Young's wrist, and used her momentum to take her down to the floor. You destroyed everything, Min Young snarled as officers pulled her away. No, Karen replied calmly. You did that yourself. As Min Young and Jin Ho were led out in handcuffs, the restaurant erupted in whispers. Duwoo, appearing unmoved by the drama, simply took Karen's hand. Are you all right? He asked quietly. Karen nodded, the adrenaline slowly subsiding. It's over? It's over, he confirmed. But the look they shared told a different truth. Something wasn't ending. Something was beginning. 1 month later, Seoul transformed under spring's gentle touch. Cherry blossoms bloomed throughout the city, their petals dancing on the breeze like pink snow. The Cha estate had transformed as well. Gone were the cold, minimalist touches Min Young had insisted upon. In their place, warmer colors, comfortable furniture, and adaptations that made the space accessible without sacrificing beauty. In the private garden, beneath a canopy of cherry trees, Duwoo waited. His wheelchair now seemed simply part of him, not a limitation, but an extension of his presence. The man who had once defined himself by physical power now commanded respect through something deeper. Karen found him there, a light breeze stirring the blossoms around them. The legal team just called, she reported. Min Young's plea deal went through. She's testifying against Jin Ho in exchange for a reduced sentence. How reduced? Duwoo asked, his expression neutral. 10 years instead of 20. Karen sat on the stone bench beside his chair. Still substantial. Duwoo nodded, seemingly satisfied. And the assets? Being returned gradually. The overseas accounts are already restored, and the property should follow within months. She smiled slightly. Chashin Enterprises, meanwhile, just closed the Singapore deal. We're actually more profitable now than before all this happened. Thanks to you, Duwoo acknowledged. A comfortable silence settled between them as they watched blossoms drift onto the garden pond. I've been meaning to ask you something, Duwoo finally said, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. What's that? Karen turned to him, curious about this rare uncertainty. Your position at Chashin is secure. Your family's medical expenses are covered. The threats are gone. He met her eyes directly. You have choices now, Karen. Options you didn't have before. She understood immediately. You're asking if I'm going to leave. I'm acknowledging that you can, he clarified. That our arrangement began in crisis, and now that the crisis has passed, you may want something different. Karen studied him, this complex, powerful man who had become the center of her world in ways neither of them had anticipated. Do you want me to go? She asked softly. No. The word came quickly, definitively. But what I want isn't the point. You stayed out of necessity, then out of loyalty. Now you should stay only if it's what you truly choose. Karen smiled, something warm unfurling in her chest. Do you know why I stayed that first night? When everyone else left? Duwoo shook his head slightly. I looked in your eyes, she said simply. Even at your lowest moment, when you were abandoned and betrayed, I saw something there. Not weakness. Strength. The kind that doesn't come from physical power or money or status. She reached out, her hand gently touching his face. I stay because I choose to. Because whatever this is between us, partnership, friendship, something more, it's real. And real is rare in this world. Duwoo captured her hand, turning it to press a kiss against her palm. Something more, he echoed softly. Is that what you want? Instead of answering with words, Karen leaned forward. Their lips met in a kiss that felt inevitable, gentle at first, then deepening with months of unspoken feelings. His hands came up to frame her face, her arms wrapped around his shoulders, cherry blossoms falling around them like a blessing. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Duwoo's eyes held a warmth Karen had never seen before. The dragon of soul, she teased gently, has a heart after all. Only for you, he replied, pulling her close again. Only ever for you. From the garden wall, a security camera quietly recorded the scene, its feed monitored in a distant office where other players in Seoul's complex power structure watched with interest. The game wasn't over, just entering a new phase. But this time, neither Karen nor Duwoo faced the future alone. As Karen's hand rested on Duwoo's shoulder, his hand covered hers, a simple gesture containing a profound truth. The Dragon of Soul had found something more valuable than his empire, someone who saw his worth when the world turned away. And Karen Sinclair, who had once crossed the world seeking only a job, had found a home in the most unexpected place, beside a man who had lost everything except what mattered most, the capacity to love, and be loved in return.